Well, hello out there, my fellow backyard stargazers, and it's been a while since I've been able to observe, mostly because, well, of some computer issues. My trusty Mac, the graphics, has decided to not work anymore, and, I just haven't gotten around to messing with it. Frankly, I don't know if I'm going to go ahead and get back to messing around with it. I have a working setup right now with Windows 10. And as you can see, I'm utilizing Stellarium. Now, those of you that have been watching the channel absolutely know I love my SkySafari app. And that's what I've used to go ahead and control the telescope. With some added features with the SkySafari app, you, as the audience, get to see the graphic up on the screen of the object as well as some information of the object. And a lot of times I like sharing that simply because, well, I don't know everything about the objects that I'm viewing. And so I want you to have that supplemental information that I find so valuable myself. And that's why I go ahead and I share the screen for Stellarium. But Stellarium is a free product. It's working out very well right now with my computer go-to. It wasn't as easy with the Mac and Stellarium for the Ioptron IQ45 Pro mount that I'm using. You actually have to go ahead and get two other pieces of software to use the Ioptron scope with the Stellarium. You have to get the Ioptron Commander, and you also have to get another software product called Stellarium Scope. Now, fortunately, these are all free. There was one other thing that was kind of annoying that I had to do, which was you had to get the latest firmware for your controller, the hand controller on the Ioptron IAQ45, and you had to go ahead and upgrade your firmware on the board. Right ascension and declination were optional, but while you're doing it, might as well. So I've done all that, and I have the software here running, which is the Ioptron Sky Commander. And I also have the other program running at the same time to have all these things kind of work, is the Stellarium scope. So a lot of different pieces having to get that working, but it is fully functional, and there are some things that I do kind of like, but I'm definitely missing the SkySafari. But I'm also testing out the OBS Studio from the Windows computer here, and hopefully that is coming through in high resolution. Now, speaking of some high resolution stuff, let's take a look at our other display, and let's take a peek at what we're viewing right now live. So as you can see here in Stellarium, we are looking at, let me go ahead and scoot on over here. We are looking at the Dumbbell Nebula. This is towards the southwest portion of our sky, fairly high up. Z is for zenith. That's directly overhead where we are here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Well, technically Christiana, but close enough. And we are looking up towards the Dumbbell Nebula, probably the closest type of landmark star you're going to find if you were outside. Looking about where we are would be Altair here, and also good pointer would be the Northern Cross here, or Cygnus the Swan, this constellation, as you're saying, right here. So let's take a look at what we've got up on the image. Isn't that gorgeous? That is M27. Now, I have to admit, I've been letting this sit here and run for a bit as I was trying to look up my, my YouTube streaming key, etc. And this is 29 individual stacks here, 45 seconds. So we've let this kind of run for quite a bit now, but gosh, just a gorgeous view here up on the screen, in my opinion. And let's zoom in just a bit, maybe show you that a little bit more. Look at that. This is M27, the Dumbbell Nebula. You can clearly see Why a lot of people also call this the Apple Core Nebula. And you're picking out this hourglass shape as well, or dumbbell shape, but it looks like an apple core, very much so here in this particular view. And we're also picking up some of the subtle features of the outer lobes in this greenish, bluish tinge here on either side. So it's coming through really, really well tonight. And I'm pleased to be able to go ahead and share this and get back on the sharing. Now, I will say, too, I'm also using a different filter than I usually use. This is a filter that is an 1¼ format, and I've got an adapter now to use that. I used to be using a Baader SkyGlow filter, and I must say the LPS filter 1 here, the D1 I believe this is working quite nicely. Looking at stars here, I think my focus might be a bit off tonight. Getting a little bit of coma on the outside too, but hey, this is good enough for me, and I hope it's good enough for you, because we are able to see this fantastic view of M27 practically live right up on the screen. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and reset the stack of our image. Actually, let me go ahead and initiate a save here real quick so that we can make sure that we have that saved. And then what we're going to do is we're going to reset what's called the stack of M27. This will basically let you show that this is pretty much a live view that we're doing. Granted, as live as a view can get with a, this type of setup. 45-second exposure is pretty brief, really, when you get down to it. Yes, you can see this object in this camera setup with a much less exposure, but 45 seconds seems to be doing quite nice. Okay, so we do have that saved. So here's our reset. So what we got to do now is simply wait for another 24 seconds, and we're going to have our very first image up for M27, just to show you that it's live. Now, hopefully this audio is coming through okay. Again, this is a completely new setup for me, utilizing a different computer, and hopefully this stream is coming through well with its, no pixelation, etc. So let's see, we've got about another 5 seconds, and there we go. Look at that. Now that's a one single exposure for M27 right now. Let's zoom in at 50%. So let's actually back out just for a moment. So this is our native, if you will, capture. This is using a ASI 294 Pro camera, 4144 by 2822 resolution. I'm using the color spaces RAW 16, and if we were to zoom in 50% on this view, we get a little bit tighter with the M27. This is a planetary nebula. It's a little bit better view there. Now you can see a little bit of the noise. Oh, there goes a satellite streaming through there as well. But you can see a little bit of the noise there. Now we have two stacks. So as you see the image here build up and build up, or as we call it, stacking together, you should see a bit of the noise go away. Now I will say that we are applying flats to my image, but we are not applying any darks at the moment. So you might see, for example, here's no doubt a bad pixel. Blue here, a couple of other blue ones, but it's pretty minor. And frankly, for electronically assisted observing, like I prefer to do, I'm fine with that. We're not doing astrophotography. Main purpose here is to be able to show you these objects live, or as close to live as possible. All right, so that's 3 right there, getting a little bit cleaner. Now, I will say it's been my experience here that after I would say about 5 stacks, your image notable in clarity, and then it just gets a little marginally better after that with the remainder of the stacks that you're doing. So 5 seems to be kind of like the magic number where you get a really good amount of smoothness to the image. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to go over to another system here that I'm using to guide, just to make sure that the YouTube feed is coming through. I have not checked that out yet. Again, I'm a little paranoid that this is a new setup, so just want to see how things are going through here. Look like space. Hey there, back here at our observatory. Yeah, thanks for joining in, and I appreciate the heads up. I just got connected up to the chat area here, so I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to everybody. I appreciate that. Please say hello to your daughter too for us. Glad that she was able to go ahead and observe the stream as well. You have to change the name later on. I don't worry about the name. We are just kind of cruising around. It's going to probably be a little bit of a short broadcast tonight. Kind of just getting my feet wet here with this kind of new setup for me and making sure that things are going to work out normal. And I think it will work out pretty well here for this particular setup. So thanks for stopping in. And the audio check as well. All right, what do you say we roll on over? Roll on over to what's called a globular cluster. So we are going to be leaving M27 here for a moment, and we will be going over to a completely different class of object called a globular cluster. And these are one of my favorite objects as well. They're beautiful to look at the eyepiece with the telescope. Aperture, of course, does help with most of these objects. And I'll point out too, if you were viewing M27, the planetary nebula that we have right here, you would not be able to see these colors as vividly as they're coming across here. It's the ability of the camera and the sensor to pick up these colors as well. But you would certainly be able to see the apple core or dumbbell shape here to M27 in the eyepiece of a telescope from a dark sky site, no doubt. Okay, we are going to pause our view here. Let's switch on over to our SkySafari app, and we'll show you, I'm sorry, I'm so used to saying that. We'll switch on over here to Stellarium, and we will go ahead and point towards M2, which is a planetary nebula. This object is just about due south, and I would say about 45, midway between the lowest point of the horizon there and directly overhead, or zenith, to where your location is. So let's go ahead and zoom in just a bit here. All these red objects, by the way, are actually galaxies. We might be able to pick up a few, I'm not sure here, but we'll go ahead and we'll scoot on over to M2, a wonderful globular cluster up next right here at the eyepiece. So stand by. Stop the guiding. All right, so we are going to actually drop our exposure down. This type of object definitely I don't think will need anywhere close to 45 seconds. I've been observing planetaries with as little as 15 seconds. So let's clear out our view of M27, and let's get prepared to see M2, a wonderful globular cluster in the constellation Aquarius. We're going to do a 30-second stacks here, and we'll wait till that comes up. And there it is. As you can see, 30 seconds does a fairly nice job to go ahead and bring in a lot of the dense core of M2. We're picking up some of the wonderful out fringes of the stars there in this globular cluster. Note the coloration, a little bit on the orange or reddish side there for the outlying stars. Globular clusters are some of the oldest objects in the universe. And so some of these stars are obviously going to have that type of reddish hue to them because they are just so darn old. And there we go. Now you're seeing what I've been talking about here. Thanks, Backyard, for pointing that out. Still got to get used to this setup, but it'll be a little bit. Running two separate screens in a laptop, so I got to get used to looking and enabling what I need to. Actually, I need to use my stream deck. But I do not know where that is. It's a peripheral that I used to use on the Mac to basically be able to hit buttons and such to switch between screens and programs, and it really came in quite helpful for these types of broadcasts. But hopefully that's coming through okay. There is M2, nice dark background. Let me see if I can maybe even lighten that up a bit. Let's zoom out. I'm at 50% zoom. Let's zoom out just a bit here. So there we are. That's our full res. Mute that so that we don't get any echo in the background. All right, let's see if we can go ahead and brighten that up a bit. There we go. All right, so let's take some, yeah, my dark level is really cranked down too low. I'm clipping a little bit on the dark, on the black there from my view. So let me give that an adjustment. And let's adjust a little bit of this color too to get it more accurate. My red and green are a little bit out of whack here. So as I'm making this adjustment, there we go. Might be clipping just a little bit too much. Back off a bit. Some further tweaks here. Yeah, I do like that better. I think we were clipping quite a bit on the black level there. we should be pretty good with our color balance right now as well. Yeah, there you go, backyard. Exactly. Using pretty much the same setup. Oop, there we go. Bring that back. I tell you, Sharp Cap has come a long, long way, and I really am enjoying it. I was a die-hard Lodestar and Starlight Live fan for quite a while. Great software, no doubt, but Sharp Cap has certainly made some inroads here. All right, so there's a little bit of zoom in on our globular cluster. M2. Now we are looking at, let's see how many we got here. 12 stacks so far. And this is our live view. I'm going to go ahead and get our saved stack here, our saved image for M2. And then we'll go ahead and we'll start looking for another object for this short little broadcast tonight, just to kind of see how things are going. Yeah, I think that's coming through darn nicely there, backyard. Thank you. So as I like to do, let's actually go back to our SkySafari. I keep saying SkySafari. That's going to be a tough habit to break. Let's go back to our Stellarium and show where we are pointed at in the night sky. So we're pretty much due south. And if you look about midway between horizon and directly overhead, which is also called the zenith, we're in not a whole lot of bright stars in Aquarius, but that is just about where we are pointed. Right there where it says scope. Let's go back to our view of M2. Now we're not that far from another favorite of mine as it pertains to globular clusters in particular, and that's going to be M15. And that's going to be just above M2, actually in another constellation called Pegasus. But M15 is a wonderful, wonderful globular as well, so that's going to be coming up next right here at the eyepiece in just a moment. All right, so let's pause our view. Stop my guiding. And let's go to M15. So this is where we are pointed at right now. As you can see, we're not too far from where M2 was. One thing I do miss again about SkySafari is that it has had a nice bit of information on each object as well as an image as well. And I know that, yes, I know that SkySafari does have some images capabilities. Boy, this is going to be tough to break that one. Stellarium does have some image capabilities, but I really like the supplemental info. All right, well, there's M15. And I do tell that my focus is a bit soft tonight. As you can see, the diffraction spikes there are a little bit doubled up, but that's okay for our initial trial run here. As you can see, the double diffraction spikes here, but that's okay. We're getting the kinks worked out of the new little setup for me. Well, let's go ahead and share that view that I'm looking at. There we are. Yeah, we got to get our stream deck hooked on up to the PC here too, and makes switching screens a little bit, actually quite a bit easier than having to move around the different windows as we are doing. But there's our first image. This is 30 seconds. Actually, that's two now. This is a stack of two for M15. And Baader, yeah, checking out your channel too, and you got quite a nice little run of observatory build. That's a neat little observatory you got. Some mounts with the CGXL, the channel information there too. Nice. Yeah, I also tried that product, the Cortez there, but um, I kind of prefer the Stellarium. You're right, it does have a little bit of information on it for some of the objects, but I like the user interface of Stellarium better. Actually, you know what I can do? I won't have telescope control with this particular setup. However, let's see if this will work. I do have SkySafari running on this PC within what's called BlueStacks. And maybe, just maybe, we might be able to get a little bit of supplemental information from that. Not as elegant as a solution, of course, having it all integrated, but Works the same way, I guess. Yeah, there we go. All right, so let's do a little bit of sharing this way. Let's see, M15 lies 33,600 light years away. Let's go do this. There we go. So this is the SkySafari Basic emulated on the BlueStacks program. A little bit of supplemental information here. And something that I did not know that I just started reading here in this subject matter is M15 is first globular cluster in which a planetary nebula, Piece 1, was identified in 1928. And it is one of only 4 planetary nebula to be in a globular cluster. All right, so let's go back to our live view. Now, I'm sure we're probably not going to be able to pick out the planetary nebula here. I'm sure it's probably quite small, but I figured I'd zoom in just a bit. Yeah, we're getting a little pixelization at the moment too, because I myself have just learned about that. I did not realize that there is a planetary nebula within M15. And I'm definitely not going to be able to pick out anything that I would be able to definitively say, yeah, that's it. So let's back on out of our zoomed in view. Actually, let's just go normal full res here. So here's our full res of the image of M15. All right, enjoy that view. I'm going to go ahead and pause this for a moment, the actual view, the image capture of, actually, let me save this because I have not saved the image yet. We are all the way up to 16, no, just flipped it to 17 stacks. So 17 exposures so far, 30 seconds. So that's about 8 minutes of integration there. And once we get this saved, we'll go ahead and we'll go to another object. Hello there, Gary. Welcome to At the Eyepiece. A little, sorry about the chair, by the way, that noise in the background. Running through a new setup broadcast-wise this evening. So we're doing a little short, brief run through of some objects. I'm glad that you can hop on in and say hello. Now it's always interesting. Let's contrast the views that we've had for these two very large, somewhat dense globular clusters. And let's compare that. Let's see, what was the one? think I'll be able to get that one for us. Yeah, I think this will be a good object to wrap up probably. All right, so say goodbye to M2 there for a moment as we slew our scope to another globular cluster. This one's going to be noticeably different. Yep. Click that. Quite the handful of work here. Basically 4 monitors, 2 laptops, 4 different screens going on here. All right, let's move on over to M71. So let's bring up that, show you where we are about pointed in the night sky. So Altar is probably one of the brighter stars here. Were we on 71 before? No. I think we were on different. Yeah. All right, well, that's good. M71 is going to be next. Go ahead and start our guide and clear, and we'll bring up our first 30-second exposure here shortly of M71. And let's get it to where you can see it, because you're going to notice something right off the bat. Look at that. M71. Now that is a globular cluster, but it's a very, very loose globular cluster. In fact, there was debate whether or not that was actually a globular cluster or simply an open cluster. But from what I recall, they have pretty much standardized now on this being a globular cluster and not an open cluster. So very, very cool stuff here. So that's a 30-second exposure. So let's go ahead and switch on over to, this is our SkySafari. And as you can see here, basically, this last paragraph here talks about the debate, if you will, for the classification of M71 as a loose globular versus a open cluster, and they've pretty much have solidified this debate on some of the science there to prove that M71 is designated as a very loosely concentrated globular cluster. And it's a relatively young globular cluster as well. So let's go back to our view. And let's zoom in just a bit. Let's go up to, let's go 50% here. Let's center that up just a bit. So you can certainly see, if you were cruising around the night sky visually and you came across this object, you would maybe indeed say, oh, well, this is an open cluster, maybe a dense or small open cluster. Nope. What you're actually viewing is a loose globular cluster. So there's our little tidbit of science. We've learned something for tonight. And by the way, M71 is in the constellation Sagittarius. This is a pretty small constellation. We'll switch our view here just for a moment to take a peek at our Stellarium program. Wanting to say SkySafari. Zoom out. We're looking a little bit further west, as you can tell there, based upon the horizon, the cardinal points there on the horizon. That's a bit of our view there, right in that constellation there. Let's go back to our actual telescope view. And there we are. Yeah, we got some blue stars around there. We got orange, red. It's a very interesting star field all around M71. It's very pretty. Back that out for a bit. And actually, I've been talking and running the stream so much that I need to make a little bit of an adjustment, I think, to the view here, if we can. There we go. It's coming through nicely. Hey there, Charles. Thanks for coming on in, and thanks for enjoying the view. It is indeed a pretty nice little view there of our globular cluster, M71. Center that up a little bit better. And yes, my focus is a little bit off here tonight. I can tell from some of the diffraction spikes, and the star's looking a little bit bloated. But hey, I still think it's wonderful. And always enjoy the opportunity to share the views of the cosmos live. Oh, well, that's cool. Thanks for spreading the word there, Gary. We're doing a little brief little tour tonight. Charles, just to give you a heads up, we usually broadcast with a different computer system, and that computer system has seen better days, put it that way. And we're utilizing a different software system and a different physical computer. We're using PC versus Mac. And I'm just doing a little bit of testing here to see how this stream goes on the PC side of things. With now that I have everything kind of working, it was a little bit more involved than the ease of use that the Mac had with its, at least with its planetarium program to computer control the mount that I'd like to use, but it's working pretty well now, so I'm pretty happy. All right, since we are coming up almost upon the hour mark for the broadcast, we will go ahead and get one more object tonight in, and I think, well, I'm not going to tell you what it's going to be. That's right, I'm going to keep it a secret. We'll go ahead and bring it up on the screen in a moment. Let me save this view here before we move on to our last object for the night. Again, this is just a brief little test and run through, if you will, of this setup. Just giving it a good run, see how it will work out, and then I can make some improvements for broadcasting. Like one of the improvements is going to be getting that stream deck that I've used before. It makes switching between all of these different windows a lot easier. All right, so let's pause that. And we will go to our next object. I will say this is going to be a planetary nebula. I'm not going to tell you which one yet. And we're going to go up to, let's do 45 seconds for this. So at the beginning of this broadcast, I was doing 45 seconds. And at the end of this broadcast, we're going to wrap it up at 45 seconds. But let's see just how well we can get this next object coming in. Folks can go ahead and just pop it in the chat once it comes up on the screen. Let's see how well it can come in with 45 seconds. Oops. Charles, I'm using Explore Scientific 8-inch f3.9 Newtonian. Probably could go a little bit longer on this one, but it's all right. We're going to try to enjoy it. It's pretty low on my horizon. Well, not really low, but it's not as high as our other objects. So yes, getting back to the equipment. Sorry, Charles. Explore Scientific 8-inch 3.9 Newtonian using a ZWO ASI 294 Pro camera with an LPS D1 filter tonight. Let me get my color a little bit adjusted here. There we go. And there's 3 stacks, so we should start to get a little bit better. Wow, I like how that blue's coming out in the middle there of the Helix Nebula. Yes, this is NGC 7293, the Helix Nebula, also classified as Caldwell 63. Well, if you're new, Charles, welcome, and you definitely there's plenty of information out there online, and thankfully, a lot of the software out there today makes it pretty darn easy to do. I highly recommend SharpCat Pro for this software. I mostly do electronically assisted astronomy or observing, so if you wanted to get into that type of observing and even broadcasting like we're doing, pretty good combo is that with really any type of camera from ZWO, or well, not really any type of camera, but the 294s are very popular. Shoot, you can even do it with DSLRs. Not necessarily, I think, with SharpCat, but you have products out there that can do it. All right, so this is 5 stacks. So let's see if we can just make a little bit of tweaking with our image here, just a bit. Bring out as much detail. I'm clipping probably a little bit too much there. Let's just that back a bit. Too bright. Still get a little bit of unevenness to my image. All right, that's 6 stacks there. Oh yeah, Gary's got info. That's fantastic that he can help you out. There's another site too, Night Skies Network, that if you do get on there and start broadcasting, if you can get the audio working, there's a little trick to that, but you can actually do two-way dialogue like we're doing, like I'm doing here, but with other amateurs, and it's a good opportunity to learn there with some back and forth dialogue with folks that do plenty of electronically assisted observing like I'm doing. All right, yeah, that's coming through pretty well. Pretty happy with that. Let's get a little zoom going. Center this up a bit. There we go. All right, so yep, this is the Helix Nebula. It's a planetary nebula in Aquarius. Yes, this is in the constellation Aquarius. Let's see here. What year? If we can determine what year maybe it was discovered. Just like those little tidbits of information. Looks like it was picked up in 1824. And it's also a very large planetary nebula. It's actually about half the size of the full moon. It's also 650 light years away, and it's estimated that this planetary nebula is about 10,600 years old. Yeah, color's coming through pretty well. I love that blue of the neutron star there. Of course, the red of the nebula is also great. All right, let's get a couple more stacks of this before we save it. Three. 72.93. All right. Right now we're up to 11. We just flipped it to 12. Wow, even looks like we're picking up subtle arc right here. I'm not sure if that's coming through on the YouTube channel. I think my pointer, I should have enabled my pointer to be visible. Yeah, it's visible. There's a subtle arc here of a very slight dim red that's coming through. Not sure if you're seeing that too. All right, so we have just about a little over 10 minutes of integration on this. I'm going to go ahead and save that, and that is going to be our night. Oh, Charles, yep, you got the new equipment, so of course you brought the rain. Glad you don't live near me. Well, enjoy the eyepiece. Those Explore Scientific eyepieces seem to be very well liked by everyone that has them, so enjoy it. All right, gang. Well, look, I am going to call it a wrap. And I'm pretty satisfied with this initial setup. I'm going to make a few little minor tweaks just so that I can go out there and make these live streams a little bit more effortless and make some other minor changes. But pretty satisfied with the way this initial test has gone with the new setup. So I appreciate everybody stopping on in and hanging out with me and enjoying the fantastic views of our cosmos tonight. Yep. If you haven't subscribed, that way you can go ahead and get any notifications on any future broadcasts. And sorry, paying attention to my tracking, had a little bit of a hiccup there. Not sure what was going on with that. But all right, here's wishing you clear skies after a little while there, Charles. Hopefully you get some as well. Test out that new eyepiece. Thanks, Gary, Charles, Backyard, for coming on in. I appreciate it. Talk to y'all later.